What up? How y'all doing, my beautiful African family? This your man Theo E.J. Wilson, aka Brother Tej, right here at the time that it is where we're doing this. What is this? It's Facts Only Fridays, Sister Emma? What's
Facts
that?
Only Friday.
Facts Only Fridays. And right now, we cannot ignore the facts of it. America done stepped into a pile of bombs in the Middle East. And we, as Black folks, the world over, will have to deal with the ramifications in some kind of way. Whether you on the continent and you might be in an Arab country in Northern Africa, you might have to deal with this. Whether you in the diaspora in the West right here, where we finna see these gas prices spike, we're going to have to deal with the fallout in some kind of way as Black folks. I don't know, we ain't looking forward to that. Like Cat Williams said, you don't want to go to the gas pump making life decisions, whether you got to eat or pay for this gas so you can get back to the house. You don't want to be there, but that might be our lives.
Listen,
yeah. So, hold on. How is it up there for you, Emma? Because I heard it's already hitting y'all at the pump.
Oh my gosh. I know in Canada we go by liters, and in the United States you guys go by gallons.
Right.
So it's $1.56 a liter here. So that works out to be just over $4 a gallon there. Yeah. So this is not fun. Okay.
It sure ain't fun.
And they're saying it's going to jump up even more. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, listen, we're all connected. You know, it could be oceans and streams and lakes and rivers and seas and planes, trains, automobiles, whatever. We're still connected. Do you remember when we had that massive power out?
Yeah.
That happened and how it literally affected the entire eastern part. It just goes to show how we are all connected, whether we want to believe it or not. So whatever may be going on in one part of the world will bleed onto the skin of every other part of the world. So that's why we're having this conversation today.
We're having this conversation today specifically because of a choke point of the petrol of the world happening right outside of Iran. I was supposed to say Iran, not Iran. You know, my hood self be like, you know what I'm saying? I ran this and I ran that. It was like, it's Iran. All right, cool.
Yes.
So, but what is in Iran is the Strait of Hormuz. And that is the shipping lane where you have about 20% of not only the world's petrol coming through, because that's right in where all the Arab states are. And that's like the oil capital of the world. But also, you have the fact that in the Strait of Hormuz, you got a whole lot of fertilizer that's moving. I didn't know about that. But the fertilizer is the place where obviously we are finding the nutrients for the soil to grow the food that we eat. So these price shocks from the Strait of Hormuz being closed off, and we're going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz because something is interesting going on there I'm going to get to in a second, could show up in a myriad of inflationary ways. Because if you're trying to get shipping, that's oil. You're trying to get your stuff flown in, that's oil. You want to order Amazon, that's oil. You know what I'm saying? So planes, trains, and automobiles and boats, we forgot about, are how we move goods across the world. The Strait of Hormuz is part of why everybody was like, do not bomb Iran, bro. Don't bomb them. Because everybody talks about Iran in the context of the Islamic extremist element in their government, the Ayatollah Khomeini, you know what I'm saying? And they talk about how this Iranian Revolutionary Guard is an occupying force on top of the Persian majority there. But what they don't talk about is Iran's technical capabilities. The tech capabilities of Iran are not only advanced indigenously, but they're getting help from the most technologically advanced country in the world, and that's China. So much stuff about China.
China. No,
China's so technically advanced.
China. And then he opens his whole
China.
mouth.
China. We don't like China, do we? They're cheating us in the economy.
But I'm going to tell you what else China is doing. Leading the way in military tech. And what we see in Iran right now is something that they're not showing in the Western media. And that is Iran's missile game got improved by Chinese technology. In fact, we're seeing via satellite imagery that the only shipping vessels that Iran is letting through the Strait of Hormuz are Chinese shipping vessels. China oil gonna be all right. But here's the thing. It's not just ships going through, it's ships coming back in. What might be on them ships, Emma? Probably military hardware.
Yep.
Probably some technology, probably some of them hypersonics, probably some drones in there, because what Iran has done in aligning with China is align themselves with the greatest manufacturing base on the planet. Their infrastructure for manufacturing is incomparable. Nobody is even close to them. And as we found out with the Civil War, that as the antebellum South found out when they fought the North, you never want to go to war with somebody who can out-manufacture you. The raw materials change the game when it comes to military hardware. And they got them with their whole self. I mean, China is backing them up right now. And Israel, quiet as it's kept, is paying a higher price than they're letting show. What have you heard about all of this connection between Iran and China?
Well, I will say this. Everything that you just said, what I'm just going to go back to Iran for a second and say, look, it's not even like they're afraid. Okay.
They ain't scared at all.
They're
not
not.
scared.
I literally was just pulling up an interview that Iran's foreign minister was having where he was
this one.
Pardon?
Yo, I think I saw this one. I'm so glad you pulled it up. Let's see this,
yes,
yo.
I'm pulling it up because he was asked, aren't you afraid? And his response, not only the way he spoke, it was his whole mannerism. It was his whole vibe. I was just like, look, y'all, you need to really think about what you're doing here, people.
If y'all ain't seen it, you gonna know what you seeing when you see his energy. Check the boy body language.
What I'm saying. But yes, I agree with everything. China, nobody should sleep on China, because China and their technology, even Canada is trying to do business with China. Okay, because
that's a major development too. We have to talk about Canada. We got to talk about Canada.
Man, Canada and the EV deal, and Canada doing business with India. Canada is saying, you know what? They're literally giving Trump the middle finger and saying, look, we're tired of you dangling us like we're, some kind of child in a playground that you want to just keep bullying.
Right.
And they're like, what? We're going to start striking deals with other countries,
Right.
So yeah, we'll get into that. We will get into that. I'm just going to pull this thing up here because before we start looking at other stuff, I'm like, I saw this man and I was like, ooh.
Y'all got to see this, yo.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, let us keep talking while I grab this thing.
Okay, cool. Because all right, so first of all, since you talked about Canada and its connection to China, and you just let me know when you're ready to play the asset. But the most important thing about it is that Canada is on our border, yo. Canada on our border. So you talking about a situation where we have been Canada's largest trading partner, right? And when Trump decided to do this tariff war against Canada, it is a major development that not only do we have a neighbor to the north, but a neighbor to the south looking to do business with the BRICS alliance. This cannot be overstated, because with Canada, Canada looked at who looks like the more mature partner in world stabilization and economic backing. And they was like, why are we even messing with our neighbors to the south? Let's go ahead and cross these waters. Well, why that's significant is because the thing that has kept America safe physically, we talking about physically, is that the logistics for reaching America when it comes to military hardware is difficult because of our oceans. You would have to do a land invasion, meaning you would have to have a partnership with one of our borders to the north or to the south. Not to say that any one of these, Canada or Mexico, would ever be a partner in a military invasion against the U.S. But the thing that we have to keep in mind is that we are safe because of geography in a lot of ways, and things could happen to the extent where, like, let's say, if Trump really decides to make Canada the 51st state, if he really decides to try that, but Canada got a trading partnership for arms with China, who can mass manufacture hypersonics at lightning speed, then we have a military logistical problem if we try to make Canada the 51st state, all because of their partnership with China, where everybody in the Gulf region is finding out a partnership with China might be more beneficial than a partnership with America if you want to protect your neck. And Iran is showing and proving that right now.
And you know, to your point about Canada being the biggest trading partner, and like I said, the way that Trump is constantly, I'm charging 25% tariff. Now he said, I'm going to charge you 100% tariff if you do business with China. Right. And all of this that he's doing, and all of these decisions that are being made, I'm telling you, I'm telling you.
No, it'll change the world order. It'll change the whole world order.
Exactly. And, you know, the way that the economy is going right now here as a result of all of these things that are going on. Right. So, you know, dealing with the war, which is more recent, but with all of these tariffs and stuff, the economy has tanked here. When I say tanked, it is so bad here. We have I'm just going to give you a few stats. We got 2.2 million people relying on food banks now for food. Okay. 2.2 million. Canada has only 41 million population. So imagine that 2.2 million. You've got people leaving their homes, you know, going into foreclosures, living in encampments. You've got landlords with empty units. They're scrambling to rent. They're like keep knocking down their rental rates. I mean, it is crazy. Okay. And all of this.
That is 1/20th of the whole Canadian population. That is very significant.
Very. And then you got food banks that are turning people away because it's really supposed to only be for a subset of people, right? So all of these, like I said, all of these decisions that are made bleeds onto the skin of everybody, like other countries and other nations, which is why we're talking about the continent now. Is the continent next?
Right.
What is happening here? But I really want to play this man, because we're on the topic of Iran and we're saying, you know, don't sleep on Iran, because Iran, let's just hear what the foreign minister has to say. Let me just pull this up real quick, because I was just like, oh my Lord. I literally was like, ooh. This man didn't come to play.
Right.
A U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You were waiting for the U.S. military to invade, the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
So you're saying that Iran is ready and willing to take on the U.S. military if there were to be ground troops?
Well, we were ready for this war even more than the previous war. So you can see, you know, the quality of our missiles, how much they are upgraded after the last war, because we learned lots of lessons. And we are prepared for any other eventuality, even, you know, a ground invasion. So our soldiers are prepared for any scenario. When I said that we are waiting for them, it didn't mean that we are waiting for continuation of the war. No, but we have prepared ourselves to confront with any scenario. with any eventuality, any possibility, and we know that we can handle that.
Ooh. Woo-wee. The smoke. That's all I heard there was that smoke. Listen, you don't never want to go to war with somebody that was like, yeah, we've been waiting for you. You don't never want to have to smoke with somebody that's like, listen, we actually would love for y'all to run up. That's that hood language right there. Buddy sounded like a whole crime boss to me. Buddy sounded like he was like, in fact, we got something for you when you show up. Run up in the house if you want to. I'm about to pull castle doctrine on a grand scale. And just for somebody to understand about what this looks like logistically, I remember when we were about to invade Iraq or Iraq, whatever, right? And I remember this so clearly because at the time, there was a conversation about us possibly invading Iran at that time. Now, this was 2003, if y'all can follow me, right? So 2003, we looked at the logistics about bombing Iran back then. Now, this was under George W. Bush's administration. Follow me, right? Under George W. Bush's administration, they did the logistics and found out that geographically speaking, Iran was 4 times the size or so of Iraq, and their technical capability was much higher. And the thing that made them so devastating to fight, the thing that made them so troubling is because of that mountain region. What a lot of people forget is that earlier in the year, you had a situation where Trump ended up bombing their nuclear facilities, but they had already moved to uranium. And they were told, at least we were as American citizens, that their capability to create nuclear warfare was all but done, right? But that didn't mean that them tunnels was gone. And we already know that the mountainous regions in the Middle East is mad problematic because of what happened to Afghanistan, right? So fast forward to today, you got a situation where they literally been preparing for this ever since you had the 12-day war back in the summertime. I don't know if y'all recall the 12-day war back in the summertime. But listen, man, Tel Aviv found out. They have that Iron Dome system, if you recall. The Iron Dome system is a U.S. bought and paid for situation, along with THAAD THAAD missile systems and whatnot. And this was very competent at blocking Hamas rockets. You want to block Hamas rockets, you could do that with these Iron Domes and the THAAD missile systems all day. But what they didn't realize is that Iran had hypersonic weapons. Now, what does this mean for the continent, right? Because I think about this all the time. What does this mean for the continent of Africa? And first and foremost, a lot of people don't know that Iran had sought a relationship with Ibrahim Traore in the Sahel Alliance. This was actually reported on last December. This was in foreignpolicy.com. If you look up foreignpolicy.com, you'll be able to find this. And they've hyperlinked several stories about this. They didn't make it into the United States mainstream media. But Iran reached out to the Sahel Alliance, is along with other BRICS partners, right? China trying to do business, Russia already in there. We saw when Russia had flown Ibrahim Traore over to Russia with like the straight up red carpet situation, right? I mean, Vladimir Putin sent Ibrahim Traore to Moscow with like fighter jets surrounding his plane, like, don't none of y'all dare touch this African king. Strength has a way of attracting strength. So once they showed that they could competently use munitions given to them by the Russians to drive out France, Iran knocked on their doors like, yo, you want some of these missiles? Ibrahim was like, what you talking about, Playboy? Let's get some of these missiles going in. You know what I'm saying? So what ended up going on was that they had a situation where Iran was knocking on Ibrahim's door, and Ibrahim's door was like, what's up? Right? They opened the door and there was talks. We don't know for certain if there was trade between the two. But what we do know is that there was this jihadist elements that's going on in the Sahel Alliance, right? Niger dealing with that right now, all right? Niger dealing with that right now. You got a situation where Mali dealing with that right now, and of course, Burkina Faso dealing with that. And all 3 leaders of the Sahel Alliance have made it clear that these jihadist elements, and we put them in quotes for a reason, are actually an advent of the fact that the West is quietly and covertly puppeteering these so-called jihadist elements. Ibrahim Ben said that, right? So fast forward, not only do they have anti-Western inclinations in common, you know what I'm saying, but they also have Islam in common. So now, because a lot of people don't remember this about Ibrahim Traore, you know, because he always come through dressed in like that military gear. Ibrahim, good for some bulletproof vest, gloves, one of them berets, and a sidearm chilling, right? So you never see him in like his historical or tradition Islamic garb, but that's a Muslim, straight up. So their relationship has been one of they're trying to have a situation where they have a partnership like that. So when you have a situation where now the Ayatollah Khomeini has been killed by U.S. forces, now you have a situation where you have it where and I haven't confirmed this, but the Ayatollah, his son done took over. Well, now you got the African Muslim world easily taking sides, or at least tempted to take sides with Iran and their fight against Israel, which of course, I hate to say this, but Israel's ambitions of a greater Israel include parts of Africa, and they're not having that.
And this goes to the question which begs, how or in what capacity will Africa end up being involved? And that's why our question is Africa next? And so when you think about what you just said, right?
Right.
But also, we already know about a situation with Africans that were duped into going over to Russia, thinking that they were getting work, right? Thinking that they were getting work, and they ended up being duped into fighting for Russia. And I want to play a bit of that because this really speaks to almost like a foreshadowing of what we can expect. It may seem like it's far-fetched. It may seem like, oh, it's not going to happen. But again, we're talking about the world and how it affects the world. And we're, you know, sometimes I find people will like to prey upon the weaknesses of certain regions, certain parts of the world, right? Black people, we know, Black people, we literally walk around with a bullseye on our back all the time. So literally and figuratively. So I just wanted to play a little bit of that because I really do think it's important that we look at this and talk about, you know, how we think this can play out with Africa.
African in Nigeria that want to come and join the Russian army is very, very easy and very good. No stress.
This Ghanaian man posts dance videos and brags about how much money he makes.
My salary go feed your father, go feed your mother, go feed your family for like 2 years, 3 years. My salary.
They offer Africans sign-on bonuses of $13,000, salaries up to $3,500 a month, and Russian citizenship after a year.
They are lying to people. The money that they tell people they pay, that is not true.
A lot of these men are being essentially promised that they're going to get civilian jobs, that they're going to be paid super high wages, but instead they're being duped to go and fight in Ukraine on behalf of Russia. Larry, what more do we know here?
Zain, I've been speaking to more than a dozen African men fighting for Russia in Ukraine right now, and they tell harrowing tales. Nearly every African I've spoken to currently fighting for Russia tells me they're desperate to leave because they have met conditions that are inhumane, sometimes racism from their Russian commanders. They are being sent to the front lines with little to no training, and they're getting killed in large numbers by drones, by missiles. Every single day is danger. And if they survive that, some Russian commanders call them used condoms and other unsavory names in the middle of this war. A lot of these African men were desperate for jobs, and they were promised civilian jobs such as cleaners or drivers or security guards. But they say when they got to Russia, they were forced into the military. They signed contracts in Russian they didn't understand with no translation or lawyers present, and they were quickly pushed to the front lines. And in some cases, when many of their colleagues die, they've seen their bodies rot on the front lines for weeks, sometimes even months. And even when they complete their service, many of them have not been allowed to leave. I want to warn you here that the story begins with a horrific video.
What is your name?
Francis.
This disturbing video appears to show an African recruit in the Russian army with a landmine strapped to his chest. He is being ordered to storm Ukrainian positions on the front lines. A Russian speaker hurls racist insults at the man, saying he is being used as a can opener to breach an enemy bunker.
I didn't see it. It is so traumatizing. Francis is my son.
CNN traced the man's mother to Kenya. She hasn't been able to reach her son since October 2025, but she recently received another video of him from an unknown Kenyan number.
Be careful, you guys, because people are being taken there, and you end up being taken to the military, and you are taken in frontline battle, and there is true killings.
Francis is a trained electrical engineer who was promised a civilian job in Russia, but his family says he was forced into the Russian army and to the front lines in Ukraine. How long was the training?
3 weeks.
They had only 3 weeks of military training.
Only 3 weeks of military training.
Had he ever been in the police or in the army in Kenya?
No.
Do you know where Francis is?
I don't know where he is. I was told he's in Ukraine, but I don't know specific whether he's there or not.
Francis is among a growing number of African men currently fighting for Russia, though exact figures are unknown. Some Africans...
I'm just going to stop there for a minute. But the reason why I brought this out is because, well, first I want to just provide some more information, okay, about what's happened with these African soldiers. A lot of them didn't make it home. Others were captured, injured, or eventually rescued and repatriated. And then it says, many are still stuck in the system of war. The situation is messy. Many were tricked, like they said, with fake job offers, security guard training, construction jobs, driver or factory work, sports, or bodyguard contracts. Many of them were sent straight to the front lines. We already saw that. Some of them were unalived. Some of them were captured by the Ukraine. And the Ukraine says more than 1,400 Africans from 36 countries have been fighting for Russia. So that's just a little bit of information. So again, when we're talking about the continent, and this isn't the only thing that happens a lot, you know, with people on the continent. They'll be duped into thinking you can get this job here. We got women in Dubai. Porta potty is going on there. Then we've got young black men in Libya. Sukur Madam is going on there. And these boys are being essayed for months at a time by these older Libyan women. I mean, that's why I preface by saying, you know, on the continent, people tend to target people on the continent, preying upon the things that they are lacking in. So when we go back to the question, is Africa next? Though these are the things that came into my mind, right?
Right.
And what are your thoughts about where you think? Because I have more. I took a lot of notes, but you share your thoughts too about how or where you think Africa might be impacted.
Well, these boys sent directly to the front line sound like the black men in America who was drafted in Vietnam. One of them men was my daddy. My father was drafted into Vietnam in 1965. He was 21 years old. And I can tell you, as the son of a war veteran, you don't necessarily ever leave that war zone. My father, because of the things that he had encountered, brought the war home with us. And these black men who are being duped by Russia, the black men who are being essayed in Libya, the way in which in Canada, I hear they're offering certain African immigrants a path to citizenship for serving with Canada if Canada should be drugged into the war, brings to mind what our beloved and departed elder ancestor now, John Henry Clark, said: the African has no friends. The African has no friends. That's part of my push for Black unity across the world. We have to be a friend to ourselves. And And we have to begin to look at the world as it is, not as we hope it should be. Because the fact is dog eat dog in the mug out here. And it doesn't have to be. One thing that I can credit Black folks with carrying is the hope and the possibility that we could actually have peace on earth. But one problem that we have as a people is we can't see the darkness in others because we don't have it within ourselves to begin with. That's why when they began to trade slaves on the western coast of Africa, we have writings from slaves who were slaves to both the Ashanti and slaves to the British that said, compared to the British, the Ashanti treated me like family. They traded them because of the fact that that's what was going on. But in their paradigm, you're only a slave for a few number of years. You're kind of a war captive, and eventually you end up becoming a member of family, may even be a property owner, may rise up to be a chief. They didn't realize that wasn't happening over there in the western portions of the slave trade. This is all symptomatic of a historical problem with our folks that I see us starting to address in certain areas. And that is, we have to be able to set boundaries and defend ourselves against predatory influences. One of the things that makes us vulnerable is poverty, period.
Yeah.
And one of my elders here told me
on that, Brother Tej. They rely on that.
They rely on keeping us poor. And this is why African economic development and Black business development both are so important. It's because of the fact that when you have your economics in order, you can become self-sufficient and call shots and not hold your tongue when you see something that is wrong. And my one of my elders here taught me that whenever there's poverty, you'll always find those willing to sell out. Whenever there's poverty, you'll find people being able to sell out or be bought out because necessity demands it. So a lot of times, what do they say? These brothers is going to Russia, trying to get out of impoverished conditions, coming there as beggars. And what do predators see when they see a beggar? Prey.
Yeah,
we're going to use you.
We're going to take you, you know?
Right. Right. And so Africa, when the coming war, should it spread, there's a both challenge and opportunity with that. We laid out the challenge, right? Certain African countries and leaders could be used as proxies. Certain African soldiers could be brought and drafted into being cannon fodder. You know what I'm saying? Especially in Muslim African countries, as we know, the Arabs traded slaves, traded Black bodies 1,000 years before the white man showed up, and they still exist in the Arab world right now, in Dubai right now, in Qatar right now. Their slave class, their servant class is full of tricked immigrants from Africa who is right next to where the bombs are falling. We've already seen video of this from them. This was on Ghana Post, where Ghanaian servant class folks over in the Middle East right now is live streaming, sending video back of these bombs coming in from Iran, blowing places up, like in Dubai, like in Qatar. Like, you know, there's been bombs over Doha. There's been bombs over Kuwait from Iran because of this stuff that Trump and his knuckleheads just set off. So there's no situation where we will be completely unscathed. And I think a lot of us forget that, especially the ones of us who are in the West. Because at the very least, you're going to get scathed at that gas pump, homie. At the very least, you finna get scathed when them grocery prices go up because the cost to get the truck over to the grocery store went up because of gas prices going up. We all know that capitalism passes the price on to the consumer, and too many of us is already poor, holding on to the bottom of the economy with our fingernails, white knuckling it, trying to survive till the first of the month. So we know at least that's going to affect us. But if we should put boots on the ground, Emma, if we should put boots on the ground, and Trump did not rule that out, he didn't rule that out. That means that Black soldiers, we make up 1/3 of the armed forces here in the United States, fully 1/3, poverty draft, bruh. That's what got us in their ranks in the first place. Just like Black soldiers died in Vietnam, just like Black soldiers died in Iraq, just like Black soldiers died in Afghanistan, they would die in Iran too, if we put boots on the ground.
And, you know, there's over 1,700 Africans from 36 countries that have been fighting for Russia. So in my mind, I'm thinking if this Iran conflict, becomes a global confrontation situation, we cannot be surprised if mercenary recruitment continues to happen.
Oh, all them brothers gonna die. Yep.
Private military companies will step in, and like I'm talking about Canada now, because more recently our prime minister was saying, I'm not necessarily ruling out getting involved. I mean, I can show you better than I can tell you.
Can never categorically rule out participation. We will stand by our allies when it makes sense. There's a distinction between the offensive actions that were taken and are being taken by the United States and Israel, that were taken by them without consultation with Canada, with other allies, and we're not party to those actions. But we will always defend Canadians. We will always stand by and defend our allies when called.
You heard what he said? United States went and made this deals and did this thing without consulting us, and we're not going to rule out defending our allies. And then right in lockstep with that, we have our immigration minister Lena Diab, who is then announcing that we have a new program. Check out what she says.
We are creating a new category for skilled military recruits to attract highly skilled foreign military applicants. Eligible recruits with a job offer from the Canadian Armed Forces, including doctors, nurses, pilots, can be invited to apply for permanent residence. They will be subject to the same security and all military requirements. This new category will support our government's commitment to strengthen our armed forces, to defend our sovereignty, and to keep Canadians safe.
So you heard her. She said doctors, pilots, nurses. It's not just that. And I will say this, in all fairness, right now, the Canadian Armed Forces, they are grossly they are scrambling for soldiers. Like, they're scrambling for people to join. So now they're saying, you know what, we'll get some foreign people in here, and we're going to tout the PR. You get permanent residency, even though she's saying you have to have all the qualifiers. This immigration minister has already let so many people in with not even as much as a security check. Since 2022, there's been over 5 million people, immigrants that have been let into the country without security screening. Okay, so, there'll be a lot of red tape that'll sort of probably, and this is just my humble opinion, be bypassed should Canada honor what Prime Minister Carney is saying, which is we will, basically we're on standby. We're here for it. But we're not bringing, we're going to make sure we bring the foreigners. So we have a massive community of Africans that are immigrants that are here. Okay. Nigeria is the top country. And, we've got a lot of them that are here that are not permanent residents. So I'm just saying, Black people, I said it already, I'm going to say it again, stand down. Do not get involved in this. Do not.
Because you know what they're going to put you. They're going to put you out front like they did my daddy. They're going to put you right out front like they did my daddy.
Like they did these ones in Russia.
Like they did in Russia. Look, my daddy could be any one of them. My daddy a dark-skinned man. You know what I'm saying? He could be any one of them. You know what I mean? And so it's like this. When it comes to the world wars, they're basically saying this is already World War III. It's hard to disagree. What you find is patternistic. Is that the world wars are actually the white man's wars. It's just the fact that the white man controlled the world and its resources, so they called it world wars. But the fact is, they were the ones who were fighting the wars. In fact, during the time, they didn't call them world wars, they called them European wars, if you look at the newspaper articles from back in the day. So, you always want to keep the newspaper articles from when the current event was unfolding that we eventually call history. Because they tell the actual truth about what this was. These folks can't get along. These folks are not happy to simply live and coexist with other folks on equal footing. And I'm calling directly to the carpet Benjamin Netanyahu, who has drugged Trump into this war, what a lot of people say with leverage from might be the Epstein files. Let's just say that. Somebody said the United States and Israel is the axis of Epstein. I'll never, they said it's the axis of Epstein because the man ran a blackmail operation where he created shadow leverage, and war was a big part of that. He had intelligence ties from everybody to the CIA, to MI6, to Mossad, to the Russian intelligence agencies. He had contact with everybody. But the whole point about it is the main leverage that Europeans have had across the scale of time, at least in this newest epoch of history, is military hardware and the itching trigger finger to use it. And they will spare nobody, no expense to make sure that they win that conflict. Now, let's talk about Russia real quick, since you brought it up, because this is very important to how things play out in Iran. And a lot of people do not see the connection between Russia and Iran. But Iran said that same foreign minister who was a straight up OG came through with that cold-blooded Vito Corleone, Michael Corleone, mob boss energy.
Oh, I'm gonna replay it. I'm gonna replay that.
But he didn't lift an eyebrow. He was like, "We actually been waiting for y'all." Like, what you mean? You don't want that. If you about to fight somebody and they be like, "I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this. Come on, let's go." It's like a different energy when you thought you was about to win. Like, oh, it probably might be a little crazy. Like, look, but here's the thing. But before you play, let me draw this connection.
I'm not gonna play it yet. We're gonna talk some more. Yeah.
Right. Let me draw this connection. The stockpiles are running low, Emma. The stockpiles are running low. And one of the things that was basically universal, whether you left or right in America, is why we sending all this money and military aid to Ukraine. Turns out we have depleted a great deal of our stockpile. And the United States military is a little cagey on saying how much, but some estimates have it as high as 40% that just went to that battlefield. So those African soldiers are being killed in Ukraine by United States manufactured munitions, and that has weakened us for the battlefront in Iran. And the reason that's weakened us on the battlefront in Iran is a very, very key thing. Our allies want re-up on the supply because Iran's strategy is mad genius. It's mad genius. I got to give it to them. Because what Iran found out was that dollar for dollar, I can actually break your bank account. What they're doing is they're flying these suicide drones that cost about $20,000 each to manufacture. And it costs us about 4 to 12 anti-aircraft missiles to shoot them down. But each one of them anti-aircraft missiles costs us between $500,000 and $4 million. So for $20,000, they're draining us of millions per strike. Millions per strike. And they got these on back order. This ain't nothing but Amazon.com to them. They got a warehouse full of these things. And if you don't hit them, if you don't shoot these little drones down, that's actually a whole apartment complex. These things got powerful explosives behind them. And we can't re-up in Iran because we blew our munitions in Ukraine. And that's what a lot of people ain't talking about. And a lot of those African brothers have been killed by United States-made bullets. And that is one of the major logistic strategical issues that this knuckleheaded administration did not take into account when they decided to join Bibi in his war of aggression against Iran.
And Iranis, they're not afraid to leave this world. They're not. So when we hear this
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
This foreign minister say we're ready. They are ready in every way, shape, fashion, form. You know, I'm about to go into Hollywood for a second.
Yeah.
There was a movie, I don't know if anybody has seen this movie called 13 Hours.
No, I ain't seen that one.
Oh, and it stars one of my favorites, John Krasinski, and a few other actors that are pretty well known, and they were in the Middle East. Okay, the exact area escapes me, but they really felt that they were equipped. The United States, like the United States, were equipped, and I don't want to spoil it. I really think people should watch it because there are a lot of movies that come out, and this is actually based on a real story. This is based on a true story. It's called 13
Was that right
Hours.
after 9/11? Is this when the story takes place? Sorry, I'm thinking about another movie. Go ahead.
It's about that old. Yes, maybe a little later, a few years later, but it is based on a true story. And my point of even mentioning this movie is A, because it's based on a true story, but B, it really speaks to the preparedness of them. So when I say they're ready, they stay ready. They will say their prayers and they'll do what they need to do. So people need to bear that in mind as well.
Well, listen, I want to back you up because there's another movie that tells a tale about these folks who ain't scared to die. And that is a 1998 movie starring Denzel Washington called The Siege. And if y'all ain't seen The Siege, you need to go watch The Siege. That's got Denzel Washington, Annette Bening, and Bruce Willis, right? 1998. Now, remember, this is pre-9/11, after Oklahoma City. This is 98. So they were trying to envision a war against Islamic jihadist fundamentalist power. They were trying to envision it, and they were trying to do it in real-time seriousness, right? Annette Bening has a lover in that movie who is a low-key sleeper cell suicide bomber. And he said a line I'll never forget. He said, "You in the West think that money is power. Money is not power. Commitment is power. You can't buy me. You can't scare me. And I'm going to have to actually die for me to actually be ineffective. And I'm going to kill you along the way." These folks is committed. When we say 10 toes down, when we say 10 toes down, you don't know 10 toes down until you had to deal with somebody with some fundamentalist jihadi going on in their mind. That's 10 toes down. Commitment is power. You can't scare them. We found out. Half of these brothers, and look at this is a statistic that nobody wants to talk about. In the war on terror, combined Iraq and Afghanistan U.S. Deaths was 7,500. We lost 7,500 men and women in uniform. That's just in the war. What they don't talk about is how many of these brothers and sisters who served over there ended up taking their own lives afterward. That's 31,000. And why did they do it? First and foremost, they were guilty because they knew they wasn't killing the enemy combatant. They was killing kids, women, and children and stuff. And the second thing is, these people traumatized them so much because the bomb could come from anybody. Anybody could run up. It could be a woman with a freaking bomb under her burqa. It could be some people driving a family, but everybody in the family is sitting on top of a car bomb, and you don't ever know they could drive it into a checkpoint. So it was crazy. And Iran got that, plus military technology. And anybody who knows war could have told Trump and Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem and all these knuckleheads in this administration, that's not smoke you won't. That's not smoke you won't.
But you see, it's the lack of really knowledge and education on their part. By the way, Kristi Noem, in the words of Donald Trump in The Apprentice, "You're fired."
You're fired.
That's just a little
Show
side
fired.
note. You're fired. But I'm gonna say, because I wanna go to the chat. The chat is really alive. By the way, Valerie Pennington, thank you so much. She said she's being prevented from voicing her true suggestion. You know how it can be sometimes on YouTube. But I'm just gonna say, for me, in my notes, the 3 ways I see this happening, going back to the story of Africa, and are they next? Is economic warfare is one. Economic warfare is one. I mean, the rising fuel prices, food costs, and shipping disruptions, right? Proxy influence battles. Russia, Iran, the US, Turkey, and the Gulf states competing for bases, allies, and resources, right?
Right.
Then we have exploitation of African manpower. That's the biggest one. That's the one I keep talking about, which is recruitment of firefighters or security contractors under the guise of you're just coming, you need a job, you need help, you're coming, we got you, come, you get paid well, all of that other stuff. And then when you're in a situation where you don't feel like you have anything to lose, or it can't be worse than what I'm going through right now. So that to me is the exploitation is the biggest piece for me that I feel like how Africa can be involved.
Those are all real things, sis. But there's another angle. There's another angle that we're not talking about yet. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because I said this in my video about Ibrahim in Iran. Y'all can check that out here on the channel too. But I'm going to say it here. There's also a tremendous opportunity for Africa right now. A tremendous opportunity. Because a lot of people, when they talk about the world wars, don't talk about the history of what happened after in Africa. Because look at the timeline. The World War II took place in the 1940s. And it is no coincidence that the push for African liberation began in the 50s and 60s. Why is that? Because the European powers were all shot out and bombed out. And they had completely spent their munitions. And that's the time when Africa fought for its liberation. The European powers were so occupied with the Marshall Plan. They were so occupied with the debt crisis that the war had given them, so occupied with the fact that they didn't even have that manufacturing base to replenish their arms supplies that they couldn't hold Africa back anymore. They shot themselves out. And if this war should absorb a larger portion of the European and Western powers, you could have a situation where that happens again. And the fact that Africa could end up getting some of that military hardware from Russia, because Russia knows that at least the Sahel Alliance is willing to stand up and fight. And this is something that I have reported on, but Nigeria is starting to manufacture their own military hardware. Now, look at this. This was a huge situation. They had a whole expo about this. Nigeria ordered some military hardware from America, and it took them 7 years. They turned to Russia, and it came right away. But when they got the Russian hardware, they found out that it wasn't adapted for the African climate. There was just too many environmental variables that the drones weren't made for, so Nigeria made their own. They got the technology, took out the microchips, saw how they were made, realized that Africa got all the raw materials you want, and they retrofitted and reverse engineered indigenous African weapons tech. And they began to realize that we can do this on our own. Well, under Ibrahim Traore, you have a situation where they're actually manufacturing their own green cars now. They got all sorts of investment within the continent. When Africa becomes a manufacturer, you have a situation where they can put that genius to anything they want. And when we become technologically modern when it comes to our military capabilities, we have a situation where we have 54 economies within the African continent that we could trade with, and we may be forced to do that. I'll say it again, we may be forced to do that when commodities that we get from the Middle East become too expensive, and when they take the foot off the neck of the African, when those who are dominated by the West have their own fires to put out because of what's happening in Iran and because of World War III. That could be a huge opportunity for Africa and people who invest in Africa if they see the opportunity in this moment and take it wisely.
I agree. And, I always, Captain Africa, I always say we need way, way more Traorés on the continent, because the way that he has taken Burkina Faso and brought everything back in, right down to cashews. I mean, nuts, everything. He's like, gold, you name it. The way that he's turned this country around, we need Traoré.
And there's going to be more of them. There's going to be more of them. We
need it.
We need it. They need it. And I've been on the African continent 2 times since he's taken power. I was just in Africa last month. I was in Africa in March of last year. And when you mention Ibrahim Traore, everybody eyes light up. If we don't have more of that right now, the people who ain't about that life going to be swept out of power by this younger generation because they see, oh, we could do this for ourselves. One of the things that Traore is showing is that without corruption, you can do a lot. If you don't have corruption, you lose the bleed of the economic power to the upper classes, and you can actually start using that money to invest in infrastructure. What's the point of living in a palace over rubble? You're not ruling over anything great, and you're setting the seeds for your own revolution versus taking the coffers of the state and investing in elevating the life of everybody, which will then in time make you even richer because there's a middle class economy that makes everybody money. You see what I'm saying? You tax that rather than taxing rubble and being dependent on foreign aid and all this other stuff that keeps these leaders corrupt. And that's the long game. And you get a chance to defend yourself because you reverse engineer that military technology once they see that you can protect your actual neck, which is what's going on in the Sahel Alliance. And I think that's the opportunity. Africa could literally have a situation where they take the boot off the neck for us in a temporary situation, and then we develop on our own because things are too pricey to come from the Middle East.
Listen, Africa can sound exactly like Iran's foreign minister.
Right.
Look, yeah, we're ready.
We're ready. What's up?
Don't come for me if I didn't send for you.
Right.
We got nothing to do with this. Leave us out of this. You know what I'm saying?
Or else.
Yeah. Exactly. Or else. We're ready. We're ready. We're prepared. We're, and everybody knows the continent and all of the rich resources. I say this moreover, they know. Even the fact that you want to even think about recruiting these black men, these African men, says a lot about, the capabilities, the power, the resilience, all of those things. Why aren't you recruiting people from your own country? You know what I'm saying? So, for me personally, that's my feeling is, is Africa next? To some extent, did they ask for it? No, but this is something that always tends to happen, right? So now it's just up to Africa to now decide how are we going to deal with it this time. How do we prepare ourselves? We should all have the Traore mindset. The Burkina Faso mindset, all of the governments across the continent.
Right. We're going to do for self, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to fight for it too. I call him Sabertooth Sankara because Ibrahim Traore is taking the route laid out by Thomas Sankara. But Thomas Sankara covered everything but the military side. So Traore got smart. He was like, all right, so none of this matters if I get took off the board. So we're going to invest in us not getting taken off the board. That man right there got a sidearm on him at all times. Yep. He's taking care of his people so good. This is one of the strategies. You got to think about this. The reason why Traore has been protected from these multiple assassination attempts is because he's literally elevating their lifestyle, and people are grateful. So they on their lookout. And I've been in a situation if I got a leader who actually got my heart, I'm his pit bull. I'm their pit bull. And I hope that they would do the same for me when I'm the leader. You see what I'm saying? Yes. These people looking out for him. He's like, man, Traore taking care of us. We got roads now. We got gold now. We got cashews. We got wheat. We got our own food now. I wish somebody would come up in here talking about they're going to get Ibrahim. You want to come through me. And you got a whole country of people like that.
And a whole country of people that are willing to take that bullet. They are. They
will win the whole country. Your Secret Service run up, get done up. Period. You know what I mean? Yeah. Come on now. That's how it's supposed to be. Every African leader is supposed to do what Ibrahim doing.
Every last one of y'all. I say this moreover, and then you will be prepared for
Prepared.
any other country that's trying to say, hey, come, and you won't get duped. You just won't. I'm going to read some of these comments real quick. Traore is outstanding. I agree. I want to invest. I've never been to the African continent. Oh, I strongly urge. You are the resource, no doubt. Yes, thank you. Start with what and how you can help each other, even if it's bartering. Interesting. Right. Yeah. Let's see. What else do we have here? I'm so sorry. Africa is in harm's way if they don't come together. Agree. Right. This is what we're saying.
Right.
Don't go to Dubai.
No. Stay away now. That's over.
We're not going. We're not going to Dubai. Don't forget the people that's over here in the West as well.
For sure.
We are not because we said at the top, we're feeling, maybe not to that extent, but we're feeling it. I feel like I'm at war with the gas tank, the gas pumps. I feel like I'm at war with the economy. I feel like I'm like in battle every single day. Man, it's like, who am I going to be at war with today? You know, Arthur Hawley says the way an American president can stay in power with no pushback is create a war. You see,
but people going to push back because people tired. Man, people be like, you need to listen to the Iranian people. I'm like, listen to the American people, because clearly our leaders are not. We don't want this war.
We don't. And Marilyn Marlowe says, preach, brother. So what else? Some people are saying, wow, they ain't fighting for their country, but are they fighting for another one? Referring to the Africans that end up getting duped. Yeah. So many of our African brothers and sisters are under religious psychosis. Wow.
Let's talk about it. Later episode. Yeah. We can talk about it.
Anyhow, family, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to all of it. We had so much to discuss, and honestly, we could have gone for a whole other hour. There's so much, and I'm not opposed to a part 2 as it unfolds.
We don't have to do a part 2.
Okay, so is Africa on here now? We can definitely. I mean, this is definitely, not one of those things of a 1 hour conversation. We'll definitely come back with our Facts Only Friday. What I will say in closing is that, Iran in general, they're not in a monolith. Everybody likes to just link them to Islam and Muslim, and then that's it. They're not in a monolith. They are very well prepared. We can't sleep on them. We can't. Go watch that movie 13 Hours. It's based on a true story. I'm telling you. We have to all pray for everybody. Okay. And for each other, because it's real and very real. And it's
all of that and a little bit more.
Yeah. It's bad. It's bad. But I'm praying for my continent. Happy 69th Independence Day to my country, Ghana. Happy Independence Day. And we shall be back. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to download the African Diaspora News Channel app from your Google or Apple store. And if you want to meet Tej, you just heard him. He went off.
You want to meet Emma.
And if you want to see more of that, you need to get your tickets for the ADNC Narrative Power Summit. The link to get your tickets is in the description field. Tej is coming to Toronto on July 25th, along with Sister Demetria and Brother Phil. And I'll be here. So what are you guys waiting for? Grab your tickets. That's my final words. We will love you and leave you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We shall see you on the next one. Have a great weekend. Please be safe.
Be safe. I'll be back.